Science fiction promises limitless worlds, but behind the spectacle lies a brutal truth. Some films did not just fail, they collapsed under their own cost. Budgets exploded, expectations soared, and when audiences stayed away, the damage went far beyond the box office. Entire studios were pushed to the edge. Some never recovered. These are not ordinary flops. These are financial disasters so massive they erased companies from existence. 10 sci-fi movies that spent too much, risked everything, and lost it all. Number 10, Titan A.E. 2000. There was a brief window when studios believed animation could grow up overnight, not just for children, but for teens and adults who wanted darker stories. This film stepped into that space with confidence. It blended hand-drawn art with early CGI and aimed for something bold. A post-apocalyptic future where Earth is destroyed and the last humans drift through space searching for hope. The concept was strong. The execution struggled to connect. Fox Animation Studios invested heavily. The budget climbed close to $90 million, which was massive for its time. The expectation was clear. This would compete with the biggest players in animation. Opening weekend shattered that illusion. The film earned just over $9 million. Momentum never arrived. Global earnings stalled at around $36 million. The numbers were not just disappointing, they were fatal. Within weeks, the studio shut down. The Phoenix division closed its doors permanently. Hundreds of artists lost their jobs. Years of work disappeared overnight. Don Bluth, who once challenged Disney, stepped away from theatrical filmmaking after this. The film later found an audience among younger viewers who grew up with it. But that delayed appreciation could not save the company behind it. This was not just a financial loss, it was the end of an entire animation studio. Number 9, Stealth, 2005. Big ideas can fall apart when they forget the basics. This film looked like a guaranteed hit on paper. A high-tech war story driven by artificial intelligence, a rogue jet that learns and evolves during combat. It had scale, it had action, it had recognizable faces. But it missed the one thing audiences need: emotional connection. The production cost reached around $135 million. Marketing added even more pressure. The studio expected a franchise. Instead, the opening weekend delivered a weak $13 million. From there, the collapse accelerated. Worldwide earnings stopped at roughly $32 million. That gap between cost and return created a loss estimated at over $100 million. The reaction inside the studio was immediate. All sequel plans disappeared. Expansion ideas were abandoned without discussion. The film became a quiet example used in meetings, a reminder that spectacle cannot replace story. The audience did not reject the concept. They rejected the execution. Characters felt distant. Stakes felt artificial. Nothing grounded the experience. For the people involved, the damage went beyond numbers. Careers slowed. Confidence inside the system weakened. This was not a loud failure that sparked debate. It was a silent one that simply vanished. And sometimes that is worse. Number 8. The Adventures of Pluto Nash, 2002. Some failures are visible from a distance. Others are hidden until the moment they explode. This one sat in the dark for years before anyone outside the studio saw it. Completed in 2000, the film was quietly shelved. That decision revealed everything. Warner Brothers did not trust what they had. When it finally reached theaters 2 years later, the outcome felt inevitable. The story placed Eddie Murphy on the moon in a future ruled by crime and corporate power. It aimed for comedy and science fiction at the same time. The tone never settled. Jokes missed their mark. The world felt artificial in the wrong way. What should have been playful became awkward. What should have been bold became forgettable. The numbers were staggering. The production cost reached around $100 million. Global box office barely crossed $7 million. That gap is not a loss. It is a collapse. Warner Brothers absorbed nearly the entire budget as a write-off. The film instantly earned a reputation as one of the worst financial disasters ever recorded. The impact hit more than the studio. Eddie Murphy, who had dominated earlier decades, entered a difficult phase. Trust in star power alone took a major blow. This project became a lesson repeated across the industry. A big name cannot carry a weak foundation. When the script fails, everything built on top of it falls with it. Number 7, Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, 2017. Passion can create something extraordinary. It can also push a project beyond safe limits. This film was driven by decades of personal obsession. Luc Besson had imagined this universe since childhood. When he finally brought it to life, he refused to hold back. The result was visually stunning and financially dangerous. The production cost reached around $180 million. That made it the most expensive French film ever created. Every frame carried that weight. Alien worlds expanded across the screen with detail and color. The scale felt limitless. But scale does not guarantee connection. Audiences admired the visuals, yet struggled to invest in the characters. The box office told the real story. Worldwide earnings reached roughly $225 million. That number sounds strong until costs are fully considered. Marketing and distribution pushed the total far higher. Losses climbed past $80 million. EuropaCorp faced serious financial strain. The company entered restructuring and was forced to seek outside investment. The dream of a long-running franchise ended immediately. Plans for sequels disappeared. The studio survived, but it was changed. This film stands as a reminder that ambition must be balanced with discipline. Without that balance, even the most beautiful vision can become a financial burden that reshapes everything around it. Number 6. Supernova, 2000. Some films collapse slowly. This one never had a stable form to begin with. It changed identity so many times that no one could clearly define what it was supposed to be. Directors came and went. Writers reshaped the story again and again. At one point, the original director removed his name entirely. That is not creative disagreement. That is total breakdown. The premise sounded solid. A deep space rescue crew encounters a mysterious object that begins altering reality around them. It had tension. It had atmosphere. It had a capable cast. But the production never found direction. Scenes were reworked. Entire sections were reshot. Even Francis Ford Coppola was brought in to attempt repairs. Nothing fixed the core issue. The story lacked coherence. The budget kept climbing due to constant changes. By release, the film carried costs far beyond its original plan. Box office returns reached just over $14 million worldwide. That figure could not recover even a fraction of what had been spent. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer absorbed the loss at a time when it was already struggling financially. This film was not the sole reason for the studio's decline, but it represented a deeper problem: expensive decisions made without clear vision. Within a few years, MGM entered a near-collapse situation and was sold in a restructuring deal. This project stands as a quiet example of how internal chaos can bleed into financial disaster. Number 5. Battlefield Earth, 2000. There are bad films. Then there are films that become industry legends for all the wrong reasons. This one belongs in the second category. It arrived with confidence and left as a cautionary tale. The project was deeply personal for John Travolta, who spent years trying to bring it to the screen. That passion shaped every decision. The story was based on a novel by L. Ron Hubbard. Expectations inside the production circle were high. Outside that circle, confusion dominated. The film's visual style felt strange. Dialogue felt unnatural. Critics reacted immediately and harshly. Audiences followed. Financially, the numbers told a brutal story. The film earned around $30 million worldwide against a budget reported near $70 million. That alone was damaging. What followed made it worse. Investors filed lawsuits claiming financial misrepresentation. Courts ruled against the production company. Franchise Pictures was ordered to pay massive damages. The company did not survive the aftermath. Legal pressure, combined with financial losses, pushed it into collapse. This was not just a box office failure. It became a legal disaster that erased a studio. The film's legacy remains tied to that downfall. It is remembered not for its story, but for the damage it caused behind the scenes. Number 4. John Carter, 2012. This film should have been a landmark. Instead, it became a warning. Walt Disney Studios spent years developing a property that inspired generations of science fiction. The source material was rich. The budget was enormous. The creative freedom given to the director was almost unlimited. On paper, everything pointed toward success. Production costs surged past $250 million. Marketing pushed the total close to $350 million. That level of investment demands clarity. It demands precision. What audiences received was confusion. The title was shortened in a way that erased its identity. Marketing campaigns failed to explain what the film actually was. Viewers could not connect with something they did not understand. Opening weekend delivered just over $30 million domestically. That number signaled trouble immediately. Global earnings reached around $280 million. That might sound respectable until the break-even point is considered. The gap created losses estimated near $200 million. That is one of the largest write-downs in the studio's history. The consequences were swift. Leadership changes followed. Strategic decisions shifted. Risk tolerance dropped. This film did not destroy Disney. Few forces could. But it changed how the studio approached original large-scale projects. The lesson was clear. Even strong source material and massive budgets cannot replace clear storytelling and focused marketing. When those elements fail, the fall is unavoidable. Number 3. Mortal Engines, 2018. Ambition can build worlds that feel limitless. It can also create distance between a film and its audience. This project carried enormous expectations. Peter Jackson attached his name as producer. The premise promised something visually unique. Cities moving across a wasteland, consuming each other for survival. It sounded unforgettable. The production delivered on spectacle. Massive moving structures filled the screen with detail. The scale was undeniable. Yet something essential was missing. The emotional core never formed. Characters felt distant. Stakes felt abstract. Viewers admired the visuals but did not invest in the journey. The financial outcome reflected that disconnect. The budget reached around $100 million with additional marketing costs increasing the total investment. Worldwide earnings stopped at approximately $83 million. That number failed to recover production expenses alone. Losses climbed beyond $100 million for Universal Pictures. The aftermath was quiet but significant. Future plans vanished. The creative infrastructure around the project slowed dramatically. This film did not collapse a studio overnight. It drained momentum from a system built on large-scale storytelling. The concept deserved success. The execution could not deliver it. That gap turned potential into loss and left a promising world unfinished. Number 2. Lifeforce, 1985. This film did not fail quietly. It arrived with ambition that felt dangerous for a studio like Canon Films. Known for smaller-scale productions, the company suddenly aimed for something much larger. A science fiction horror story built on spectacle and shock. The premise alone set it apart. Astronauts discover mysterious humanoid beings in space and bring them back to Earth. What follows is not a traditional invasion. It is something stranger, a draining of life itself that spreads across a major city. The production cost reached around $25 million, which pushed Canon far beyond its comfort zone. For a studio built on tight budgets and quick turnarounds, this was a massive gamble. The visuals demanded scale. The tone demanded risk. But audiences in the mid-1980s were not ready for something this unusual. The film struggled to define itself. Was it horror? Was it science fiction? Was it something in between? That uncertainty weakened its impact at release. Box office returns were extremely low compared to its cost. Domestic earnings barely crossed a fraction of what was needed. The loss did not immediately destroy the studio, but it exposed a serious flaw. Canon was spending like a major player without having the financial stability to survive failure. This project became a warning sign that went unheeded. What makes this film important is not just its performance, it is what it revealed. A studio chasing scale without control. A system expanding faster than it could sustain itself. This was not the collapse. It was the beginning of one. Number 1. Jupiter Ascending, 2015. Trust in filmmakers can build masterpieces. It can also lead to unchecked risk. After redefining science fiction with The Matrix, the Wachowskis were given extraordinary freedom. That trust carried into this project. A massive space opera built on original ideas and unlimited scale. The budget reflected that confidence. Production costs reached around $176 million. Marketing pushed the total investment far higher. Expectations were clear. This would become a new franchise. Instead, it became a financial setback. The story followed a young woman discovering a hidden cosmic destiny. The concept had potential. The execution struggled to maintain clarity. Tone shifted unpredictably. Characters failed to anchor the narrative. The release strategy revealed internal doubt. The film moved from a prime summer slot to February. That shift often signals uncertainty. Box office results confirmed it. Worldwide earnings reached around 184 million. That figure could not recover total costs. Losses exceeded 100 million for Warner Brothers. The impact extended beyond one film. The era of large-scale original sci-fi backed by full studio trust slowed down. The Wachowskis moved away from blockbuster territory. This project closed a chapter that began with groundbreaking success. It showed how quickly momentum can fade when vision loses connection with audience expectations. The pattern is impossible to ignore. Big budgets without control lead to the same ending. Studios fall, careers shift, lessons repeat. Which of these films surprised you the most? And which one do you think deserved a second chance? Let me know.